The billionaire CEO saw his wife as a substitute. But she left without looking back, and the CEO realized how important she was. Day 1095. 3 years to the day. Natalie Green stood in the bedroom that had never really been hers, staring at 2 packed suitcases and a manila envelope containing divorce papers. Her hands shook as she zipped the last bag closed. Downstairs, she heard the front door open. Ryan Ashford was home early. She heard the pop of a champagne cork, his footsteps heading to the living room, and his voice calling out cheerfully. "Natalie, come down here. I want to celebrate." Celebrate. Her heart cracked wider. Of course he wanted to celebrate. Today marked the end of their contract. 3 years of playing house. 3 years of her falling impossibly, stupidly in love while he counted down the days until his inheritance was secure and she could be dismissed like any other employee who'd completed their assignment. She couldn't do this anymore. Not even for one more night. Before we dive into the story, drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. I love connecting with you all. The champagne glass Ryan handed her felt like lead in Natalie's palm. He'd actually bought the expensive kind, the bottles he usually reserved for closing major business deals. His smile was genuine, relaxed in a way she rarely saw. He looked happy. 3 years, Ryan said, raising his glass toward hers. Can you believe it? The board never suspected a thing. My father's company is not only saved but thriving. The shareholders are happy. And you are absolutely perfect through all of it. Perfect. The word landed like a slap. Natalie set the glass down on the marble counter without drinking, her throat too tight to swallow. Ryan didn't notice. He was already pulling out his phone, scrolling through something. I had my lawyer draw up a bonus, he continued, his tone businesslike despite the champagne. Beyond what we agreed on in the original contract. You went above and beyond. Natalie. Those charity galas, the investor dinners, even that week you spent playing hostess when my Singapore partners visited. You made this work. She made this work. Like she'd been his event coordinator. His hired actress. I also transferred the final payment this morning, Ryan went on. Your student loans are completely cleared, plus the agreed upon salary for all 3 years. You should see it in your account already. Natalie's vision blurred. She'd known this was coming. She'd known from day one that this was a business arrangement, a contract with clear terms. She was the one who'd broken the rules. She was the one who'd been stupid enough to fall in love with a man who saw her as a convenient solution to an inheritance problem. Ryan. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. He finally looked up from his phone, and something in her tone must have registered because his expression shifted, became more focused. What's wrong? Everything. Everything was wrong. I can't do this, Natalie said. Do what? The paperwork is simple. My lawyer already prepared everything. We just need to sign and file. We agreed to wait a few months before making the divorce public, let it seem natural, but the hard part is over. No, I mean I can't do this. This. Right now. Celebrating. Ryan's brow furrowed, confusion crossing his handsome features. He set his own glass down, giving her his full attention for perhaps the first time in weeks. I don't understand. You agreed to 3 years. We completed 3 years. This is what we both wanted. It's what you wanted, Natalie said, and felt something break loose in her chest. 3 years of swallowing words, of pretending, of playing a role. I wanted something else entirely. Natalie. Do you know what today is to me, Ryan? She turned away from him, gripping the counter's edge. It's the day I have to finally accept that the last 3 years of my life were spent loving someone who was never going to love me back. The silence that followed was deafening. She heard him move, heard his sharp intake of breath. When she finally turned back around, Ryan was staring at her like she'd spoken a foreign language. What did you just say? I'm in love with you, Natalie said, and the words that should have felt freeing just felt like another kind of ending. I've been in love with you for a long time. Maybe not at first, maybe not during those early days when we were just signing contracts and setting boundaries. But somewhere along the way, I stopped pretending. Ryan's face had gone pale. Natalie, the contract specifically stated no emotional attachment. I know what the contract said. The words burst out of her, louder than she'd intended. I know, Ryan. I signed it. I agreed. But you can't contract away feelings. You can't sign a piece of paper and guarantee your heart won't get involved. You should have told me. When? Natalie let out a broken laugh. When should I have told you? When you came home at midnight every night for 6 months straight, barely saying hello. When you introduced me at company events as my wife but looked through me like I was furniture. When you scheduled our anniversary dinner with your accountant because it was more efficient than 2 separate meetings. That's not fair. You knew what this was. I did. I do. That's why I'm leaving tonight instead of waiting. Ryan went very still. Tonight. My bags are already packed. I have a teaching position in Portland starting next month. I found an apartment. I'm not asking you for anything beyond what was in our contract. I'll sign the divorce papers. I'll keep the NDA. I'll never tell anyone this was anything other than a marriage that didn't work out. Natalie, wait. Just wait. Ryan moved toward her, and she stepped back instinctively. The hurt that flashed across his face was brief but unmistakable. We can talk about this. We don't have to rush into anything. Rush? Ryan, it's been 3 years. I mean the divorce. If you need more time to figure out your next steps, if the timeline is too fast, we can extend things. I'm not going to just kick you out. She almost laughed at how completely he was missing the point. I'm not asking for more time in a fake marriage. I'm asking to leave before I lose any more of myself. It wasn't fake, Ryan said, and there was something in his voice she'd never heard before. Not all of it. What part was real, Ryan? Tell me. The separate bedrooms? The scheduled public appearances? The way you have to set calendar reminders to ask me how my day was? His jaw tightened. That's not fair. You're right. It's not fair. None of this is fair. It's not fair that I agreed to something I couldn't handle. It's not fair that I broke the rules. It's not fair that I'm standing here on what should be a simple business conclusion, falling apart because I spent 3 years waiting for you to see me as something other than a convenient solution. No, you don't. Natalie's voice broke. You see someone who plays her part well. You see someone useful. You see someone who doesn't make demands or complicate your life. But you don't see me, Ryan. You've never asked what I want. What I dream about. What scares me. You don't know my favorite color or what I do on Sunday mornings or why I became a teacher in the first place. Green, Ryan said suddenly. Your favorite color is green. Sage green specifically. And Sunday mornings you volunteer at the community center teaching art to kids. You became a teacher because your 3rd grade teacher, Mrs. Patterson, was the first person who ever told you that you mattered. Natalie froze. Ryan took a step closer, his voice rough. You think I don't see you? I know you rearrange the bookshelf by color when you're stressed. I know you burn lavender candles when you can't sleep. I know you cry at those commercials with dogs finding their way home. I know you hum when you cook and that you always make too much food because you grew up never having enough. Then why? The question came out broken. If you know all of that, why do you treat me like I'm nothing more than a signature on a contract? Ryan looked away, his jaw working. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely audible. Because it was easier than admitting this was never just business for me either. The world tilted. What? I can't do this right now, Ryan said, suddenly all walls again. I have a conference call with Tokyo in 20 minutes. We'll talk about this later. No. Natalie moved between him and the door. You don't get to say something like that and then hide behind work. You don't get to drop that bomb and walk away. Natalie. Say it clearly, Ryan. Say what you mean. He met her eyes then, and what she saw there made her breath catch. Fear. Raw, undisguised fear. If I say it, Ryan said quietly, everything changes. The contract is void. The clean ending is gone. We can't go back to simple. We were never simple. 3 years ago, you needed money and I needed a wife. It was transactional. Clear. Safe. And now? Ryan's hand came up, hesitated, then finally touched her face with a gentleness that made her eyes burn. Now you're leaving, and I feel like I can't breathe. Natalie pulled away from his touch, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might crack through her ribs. She couldn't let herself believe this. Not now. Not after 3 years of being treated like a business arrangement. Don't do that, she whispered. Do what? Don't say things you don't mean just to keep me from leaving. I've spent 3 years reading into every small gesture, every accidental kindness, convincing myself that maybe you felt something. I can't do it anymore, Ryan. I'm not trying to manipulate you. Then what are you trying to do? Natalie's voice rose. Because from where I'm standing, you had 3 years to tell me you felt something. 3 years to treat me like I mattered. And you chose to treat me like an employee every single day. Ryan's phone buzzed on the counter. Tokyo calling. He glanced at it, then back at her, and she saw the war happening behind his eyes. Work or her? The choice he'd made 1,000 times before. Answer it, Natalie said flatly. We both know you're going to. Natalie. Answer the call, Ryan. Some things never change. She watched something break in his expression, but he didn't reach for the phone. It kept buzzing, shrill and insistent, while they stood there in silence. Finally, it stopped. The silence that followed felt heavier than any words. I'm not answering it, Ryan said. That doesn't erase 3 years of you choosing work over everything else. You're right. His admission caught her off guard. You're absolutely right. I buried myself in work because it was easier than dealing with feelings I didn't know how to handle. I told myself our arrangement was temporary, that keeping distance was the professional thing to do. But the truth is, I was a coward. Natalie wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe him so badly it hurt. But words were easy. Words cost nothing. I need to go, she said, moving toward the stairs. Ryan followed her. Just give me a chance to explain. Explain what? That you've secretly had feelings this whole time but chose to let me suffer alone? That's supposed to make this better. She reached the bedroom and grabbed the handle of her first suitcase. It was heavier than she remembered. Ryan appeared in the doorway, blocking her path. Move, Ryan. Not until you listen to me. I've listened to you for 3 years. I've listened to you talk about quarterly reports and board meetings and shareholder expectations. I've listened to you discuss business strategy over breakfast and negotiate deals during the few dinners we actually had together. I've listened to you say my name like I'm your assistant, your event planner, your convenient prop. I'm done listening. My parents had the worst marriage I've ever seen, Ryan said suddenly, his voice raw in a way she'd never heard. They stayed together for appearances, for the company, for every reason except love. They made each other miserable for 30 years. My mother died hating my father. My father drank himself to death within 6 months of her funeral. I watched them destroy each other, and I swore I would never let that happen to me. Natalie's grip on the suitcase loosened slightly. When the board told me I needed to be married to inherit the company, I was furious, Ryan continued. It felt like I was being forced into the same trap that killed my parents. So I made it clinical. A contract. Clear terms. An end date. No messiness. No feelings. No one gets hurt. But someone did get hurt, Natalie said softly. I got hurt, Ryan. I know. And I hate myself for it. He stepped into the room, his hands shaking slightly. You want to know when I realized I was in love with you? It was 8 months in. You were in the kitchen making dinner, wearing one of my old college shirts because you said your clothes were in the wash. You were dancing to some song on the radio, completely unself-conscious, and you looked so happy. So at home. And I thought, this is what I want for the rest of my life. Natalie's eyes burned with unshed tears. But I was terrified, Ryan said. Because loving you meant I'd broken my own rules. It meant I'd let someone in who could hurt me. Who could leave. Who I could lose the way my father lost my mother. So I did the stupidest thing possible. I pulled back. I worked longer hours. I kept you at arm's length. I convinced myself that if I didn't acknowledge the feelings, they'd go away. They didn't go away. No. They got stronger every single day. Every morning I woke up knowing you were in the house. Every night I came home and saw your shoes by the door. Every charity event where I got to introduce you as my wife. Every small moment where you smiled at me like I was worth smiling at. I fell deeper and deeper, and I was too much of a coward to tell you. You should have told me, Natalie whispered. I know. I spent 3 years thinking I wasn't enough. That I wasn't pretty enough, or smart enough, or interesting enough to make you care. God, Natalie. Ryan moved closer, his voice breaking. You're everything. You've always been everything. The problem was never you. It was always me and my damage and my fear. I can't stay just because you're finally ready to admit you have feelings, Natalie said, even as her resolve wavered. I need more than fear and damage, Ryan. I need someone who chooses me, who doesn't need a crisis to realize I matter. You're right. You deserve that. You deserve someone who shows up, who isn't afraid, who treats you the way you should be treated from day one. Ryan's voice was thick with emotion. But I'm asking you to give me a chance to be that person. Not because you're leaving and I'm panicking. Because I love you, and I should have told you that 2 years and 4 months ago in our kitchen. Ryan. I love you, he said again, clearer this time. I love the way you organize books by color. I love that you cry at dog commercials. I love that you burn lavender candles at 2 in the morning when you can't sleep. I love that you volunteered at the community center every Sunday even though our contract didn't require you to do anything except show up to business events. I love that you learned to make my coffee exactly how I like it even though I never asked. I love that you're kind to everyone, even people who don't deserve it. I love you, Natalie. And I'm so sorry it took me losing you to find the courage to say it. The tears Natalie had been holding back finally spilled over. 3 years. 3 years she'd waited to hear those words. And now that she finally had them, she didn't know what to do with them. I'm still leaving, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. Okay. What? If you need to leave, I understand. I don't have the right to ask you to stay. Not after what I've put you through. Ryan's voice was steady, but his eyes were wet. But I need you to know that letting you walk out that door will be the biggest regret of my life. And if you give me even the smallest chance, I will spend every day proving that I see you. That I choose you. That you matter more than any company or any inheritance or any amount of success. Natalie looked at the man in front of her. The man who'd kept her at arm's length for 3 years. The man who was now looking at her like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. She saw the fear in his eyes. The vulnerability. The desperate hope. 1 month, she heard herself say. What? You have 1 month to prove this is real. That you're not just panicking because I'm leaving. That you actually want me, not just the idea of not losing me. Ryan's face transformed with hope. 1 month. I'll take it. I'll prove it to you, Natalie. I swear. And we do this right, Natalie continued, her voice firmer now. No more separate bedrooms. No more scheduled appearances. No more treating this like a business arrangement. If we're going to try, we try for real. Agreed. Anything you want. And if after 1 month, I still don't believe this is real, I leave. No arguments. No negotiations. You let me go. The thought clearly terrified him, but Ryan nodded. If that's what you need, then yes. 1 month. And if you still want to leave, I won't stop you. Natalie set her suitcase back down, her heart pounding. She was either making the best decision of her life or setting herself up for even more heartbreak. But she had to know. She had to give him this chance, if only so she wouldn't spend the rest of her life wondering what if. Day 1 starts now, she said. Ryan moved toward her slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he pulled her into his arms. It was the first real hug they'd shared in 3 years of marriage, and Natalie felt something in her chest crack open. He held her like she was precious, like he was afraid she might disappear. I won't let you down, Ryan whispered against her hair. I promise you, Natalie, I won't let you down. She didn't answer. She couldn't promise she believed him yet. But she stayed in his arms, breathing him in, and let herself hope. The next morning, Natalie woke up in Ryan's bed for the first time in 3 years. Not their bed. His bed. Because even though she'd agreed to stay, even though they'd talked until nearly 3 in the morning, the reality of sharing a bedroom with him felt surreal. She'd spent so long sleeping alone down the hall that waking up with sunlight streaming through his windows, in his space, made her feel like she'd stepped into an alternate universe. Ryan was already awake, sitting on the edge of the bed with his laptop balanced on his knees. Old habits. Natalie felt disappointment curl in her stomach before she could stop it. He must have sensed her watching because he turned, and his expression immediately softened. Good morning. Morning, Natalie said, her voice still rough with sleep. Ryan closed the laptop and set it on the nightstand. The gesture was small, but it meant something. He was choosing her over work, even if just for a moment. I made coffee, he said. And I was thinking we could have breakfast together before I head to the office. You have to go in today. I have a meeting at 10 that I can't reschedule. But I'll be home by 6. I promise. Natalie sat up, pulling the blanket around herself. She was wearing one of her old sleep shirts, suddenly self-conscious in the morning light. Ryan, you don't have to make promises you can't keep. I know how demanding your job is. I'm not making promises I can't keep. I'm making promises I should have made 3 years ago. He reached over and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, the gesture so tender it made her chest ache. I'm home by 6. We'll have dinner together. No phones. No work. Just us. Okay, Natalie said softly. They had breakfast in the kitchen, sitting across from each other at the island. Ryan had actually made eggs and toast, something Natalie had never seen him do. He was a terrible cook, the eggs were slightly burned and the toast was too dark on one side, but he tried. That mattered. Tell me about Portland, Ryan said suddenly. Natalie looked up, surprised. What? The teaching position. What would you have been doing? It felt strange, talking about the life she'd almost started without him. 4th grade. There's a really good arts program at the school. I would have been teaching general subjects but also helping with the after-school art classes. You would have been amazing at that. Yeah, well. It doesn't matter now. It matters, Ryan said firmly. Your dreams matter, Natalie. I want to know about them. I want to know everything I should have asked about over the past 3 years. So she told him. About how she'd always wanted to work with kids who needed extra support, the ones who fell through the cracks. About how art had saved her as a kid growing up in foster care, how a teacher had given her a sketchbook and told her she had talent. About how she wanted to be that person for someone else. Ryan listened to every word, really listened, and Natalie felt something loosen in her chest. This was what she'd wanted. Someone who cared about her thoughts, her dreams, her past. What happened to your art? Ryan asked. You used to sketch. I remember seeing drawings in your things when you first moved in. I stopped. Because it felt silly. Like a hobby that didn't fit in this world. Natalie gestured around the expensive kitchen, the marble counters and high-end appliances. I was playing the role of a CEO's wife. Art didn't seem to belong in that picture. That's my fault, Ryan said quietly. I made you feel like you had to fit a certain image. You didn't make me do anything. I chose to put that part of myself away. Will you start again? Drawing, I mean. Natalie shrugged. Maybe. I'd like to see your work sometime. If you'd be comfortable showing me. The conversation felt fragile, like they were learning to talk to each other for the first time. It was strange and awkward and also kind of wonderful. Natalie found herself smiling despite everything. Ryan left for work at 9:30, and before he walked out the door, he turned back and kissed her forehead. It was chaste, careful, but it sent warmth spreading through Natalie's entire body. 6 o'clock, he reminded her. I'll be home. Natalie spent the day in a strange limbo. She unpacked her suitcases, putting her clothes back in the closet that had always felt too big, too empty. She cleaned the kitchen even though the housekeeper would be coming tomorrow. She tried to read but couldn't focus. She kept checking the clock. At 5:30, her phone buzzed with a text from Ryan. Leaving the office now. What do you want for dinner? Natalie stared at the message, her heart doing something complicated in her chest. He was actually keeping his promise. She typed back quickly. Surprise me. At 6:15, Ryan walked through the door carrying bags from her favorite Thai restaurant. Natalie didn't even know he knew it was her favorite. They ate at the dining room table, the one they'd only ever used for business dinners with clients. It felt different with just the two of them, intimate in a way that made Natalie's nerves flutter. Tell me about your day, Ryan said. I unpacked. Cleaned. Did a lot of thinking. What were you thinking about? Whether I'm crazy for giving you this chance. Ryan's expression grew serious. Are you? Having second thoughts. I don't know yet, Natalie admitted. This is all very strange, Ryan. A week ago, you wouldn't have come home at 6. You wouldn't have asked about my day. You wouldn't have remembered my favorite restaurant. And now suddenly you're trying to be this attentive husband, and I don't know if it's real or if you're just scared of losing what you've taken for granted. It's both, Ryan said honestly. I am scared of losing you. I'm terrified, actually. But that fear is making me realize what I should have seen all along. You're not something I took for granted. You're someone I was too afraid to let myself need. And now I'm trying to fix that. I know it seems sudden, but the feelings aren't new, Natalie. Just the courage to act on them. Then prove it, Natalie said. Don't just tell me you see me. Show me. How? I don't know. That's what this month is for. To see if your actions match your words. Ryan nodded slowly. Okay. Then I'll show you. That night, they lay in bed together in the dark. Not touching, but close enough that Natalie could hear Ryan breathing. It should have felt awkward, but instead it felt like coming home. Natalie. Ryan's voice broke the silence. Yeah. Thank you for staying. For giving me this chance. I know I don't deserve it. You're right. You don't, Natalie said, but her voice was soft. But I'm giving it to you anyway. She felt him reach for her hand in the darkness, his fingers lacing through hers. It was such a simple gesture, but it meant everything. They fell asleep like that, holding hands, and for the first time in 3 years, Natalie didn't cry herself to sleep wondering if she'd ever be enough. The days that followed fell into a new rhythm. Ryan came home every night by 6:30 at the latest. They cooked dinner together, terrible attempts that usually ended with them ordering takeout and laughing at their failures. They talked about everything, random things, deep things, filling in 3 years of gaps. Ryan asked questions about her childhood, her dreams, her fears. He listened like every word mattered. On the 4th day, Natalie came home from running errands to find art supplies spread across the dining room table. Sketchbooks, charcoal pencils, watercolors, everything she could possibly need. What is this? She asked when Ryan appeared from his office. You said you stopped drawing. I thought maybe you'd want to start again. Natalie's throat tightened. Ryan. If it's too much, I can return them. I just thought maybe having the supplies would help. No pressure. She walked over to the table, running her fingers over pristine sketchbook. When was the last time someone had paid attention to what she wanted, what she needed, without her having to ask? Thank you, she whispered. That night, while Ryan worked in his office, Natalie sat at the dining room table and opened the sketchbook. Her hand was rusty, uncertain, but slowly the lines began to form. She drew without thinking, letting her pencil move across the paper, and only when she finished did she realize she'd drawn Ryan. Not the cold CEO version, but the man she'd seen glimpses of over the past few days. The one who smiled when he thought she wasn't looking. The one who was trying so hard to prove he could change. That's incredible. Ryan's voice came from behind her. Natalie jumped, quickly moving to close the sketchbook, but Ryan had already seen it. He came closer, looking at the drawing with an expression she couldn't read. You drew me. It's just a sketch. It's not finished. It's beautiful, Ryan said quietly. Is that how you see me? Natalie looked at the drawing, at the softness she'd captured in his eyes, the vulnerability in his expression. Sometimes. I want to be that person, Ryan said. The one you drew. Not the one I've been. Then be him. Ryan pulled her up from the chair and into his arms. This hug was different from the others. Tighter, more desperate. Natalie let herself lean into him, let herself believe, just for a moment, that maybe this was real. I'm trying, Ryan whispered against her hair. I'm really trying, Natalie. I know, she said. And she did. She could see him trying, could feel the difference in every small gesture, every kept promise, every moment of attention. But trying wasn't the same as succeeding, and Natalie was still waiting for the other shoe to drop. She was waiting for him to choose work over her again. To slip back into old patterns. To prove that people didn't really change, no matter how much they wanted to. She just hoped she was wrong. 2 weeks into their month, Natalie woke up to an empty bed. Her heart sank before she could stop it. She reached over to Ryan's side and found the sheets cold. He'd been gone for a while. She checked her phone. 5:30 in the morning. Old habits creeping back already. Natalie pulled on a robe and went downstairs, preparing herself for disappointment. She'd find him in his office, buried in work, the last 2 weeks forgotten in favor of quarterly reports and shareholder meetings. She'd been stupid to think anything could really change. But when she reached the kitchen, Ryan was there. Not in his office. Not on his laptop. He was standing at the stove, attempting to make pancakes, flour dusting his expensive pajama pants. "You're up early," Natalie said from the doorway. Ryan turned, spatula in hand, looking almost guilty. "I didn't mean to wake you. I was trying to surprise you with breakfast." "You're making pancakes at 5:30 in the morning." "I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about how you said your foster mom used to make you pancakes on Sundays. I wanted to try." He gestured at the stove where something that vaguely resembled a pancake was smoking slightly. "I'm not very good at it." Natalie's chest tightened. He'd remembered that. She'd mentioned it once, casually, during one of their late-night conversations. The fact that he'd not only remembered but tried to recreate it made her eyes sting with tears she refused to shed. "Let me help," she said, moving to stand beside him. They made pancakes together in the pre-dawn quiet, Natalie guiding Ryan's hands, showing him how to know when to flip them. They burned the first batch completely, and the second batch was lopsided, but by the third try, they had something edible. They ate them at the kitchen island as the sun started to rise, and Natalie thought this might be the most perfect morning she'd ever had. "I have something to tell you," Ryan said suddenly, setting down his fork. Natalie's stomach dropped. Here it comes. The excuse. The emergency meeting. The reason he has to go back to choosing work over her. "I rearranged my schedule for next week," Ryan continued. "Moved some meetings, delegated a few projects. I want to take you somewhere." "Where?" "It's a surprise. But we'd leave Monday morning and be back Thursday night. Can you clear your schedule?" Natalie almost laughed. Her schedule consisted of volunteering at the community center and sketching in the dining room. "I think I can manage that." "Good." Ryan reached across and took her hand. "I want to show you something. Something important to me. If we're doing this, if we're really trying, I want you to know all of me. Not just the CEO version." The trip he was planning turned out to be to a small coastal town 3 hours north. They left early Monday morning, Ryan driving his personal car instead of having his driver take them. It felt intimate, just the two of them on the open road, music playing softly, talking about nothing and everything. "I grew up here," Ryan said as they passed the welcome sign for Harbor Point. "Before my father's company took off. Before the money and the board meetings and all of it." Natalie looked out at the quaint downtown, the small shops and fishing boats bobbing in the harbor. It was charming in a way that felt worlds apart from the city penthouse they lived in now. Ryan pulled up to a small cottage overlooking the water. It was beautiful in a simple way, with weathered blue shutters and a porch that wrapped around the front. "This was my grandmother's house," Ryan explained as they got out of the car. "She left it to me when she died. I've kept it all these years, but I never bring anyone here." "Why not?" "Because this place is mine. The one thing that isn't tied to the company or my father's legacy or expectations. It's just a house where I was happy once, before everything got complicated." He looked at her, vulnerability clear in his eyes. "I wanted to share it with you." Inside, the cottage was cozy and lived in, despite Ryan rarely visiting. There were photos on the walls, a young Ryan with an elderly woman who must have been his grandmother. Books lined the shelves. A fireplace took up most of one wall. "She was the only person who ever really understood me," Ryan said, looking at one of the photos. "My parents were always fighting, always miserable. But summers here with my grandmother, those were the only times I felt like I could breathe. She died right before I took over the company. Sometimes I think if she'd lived longer, I might have made different choices." "What kind of choices?" "Maybe I wouldn't have been so afraid of letting people in. She used to tell me that love wasn't a weakness. That it was the only thing that mattered in the end. My parents proved the opposite, but she believed it anyway. And she was happy, even after my grandfather died. She had friends and her garden and this house. She had a life that meant something beyond money and status." Natalie moved closer, taking his hand. "She sounds wonderful." "She would have loved you," Ryan said. "She always told me to find someone real. Someone who saw past the money and the name. Someone who would call me on my garbage and make me want to be better. He turned to face her fully. I think she would have known what I was too stupid to see. That you were that person from the beginning. They spent 3 days in Harbor Point, and they were the best 3 days of Natalie's life. Ryan showed her his favorite spots from childhood, the ice cream shop that still made the same flavors, the beach where he used to collect shells, the bookstore where his grandmother had bought him his first grown-up novel. They walked along the harbor holding hands. They cooked simple meals in the cottage kitchen. They sat on the porch at night, watching the stars, talking until they couldn't keep their eyes open. On their last night, Ryan built a fire in the fireplace and they curled up on the couch together. It was the closest they'd been physically, Natalie's head on his chest, his arms around her, and it felt right in a way that made her heart ache. I want to tell you something, Ryan said, his voice rumbling in his chest beneath her ear. And I need you to really hear me. Okay. The contract marriage was my idea. Bringing you into my life to fulfill a board requirement was calculated and cold. But you, Natalie Green, you were never part of the calculation. The way you made me feel, the way you changed everything without even trying, that wasn't something I planned for or expected. And it scared me so badly that I tried to pretend it wasn't happening. Natalie stayed quiet, letting him continue. I told myself I was protecting us both by keeping distance. That when the 3 years were up, we'd go our separate ways and no one would be hurt. But I was lying to myself. I was already in too deep. Every morning I woke up in that house knowing you were down the hall. Every event where I got to have you on my arm. Every night I came home late and you'd left a plate of food in the fridge for me even though I didn't deserve your kindness. I fell in love with you in 1,000 small moments, and I was too much of a coward to admit it. Ryan. Let me finish. Please. He took a shaky breath. When you said you were leaving, something in me broke. I realized I'd wasted 3 years we could have had together because I was afraid. Afraid of ending up like my parents. Afraid of losing you. Afraid of needing someone so much that losing them would destroy me. But letting you walk away would have destroyed me anyway. At least this way, if you still decide to leave, I'll know I tried. I'll know I told you the truth. Natalie lifted her head to look at him. His eyes were wet, his expression raw and open in a way she'd never seen. The truth is, I love you, Ryan said. I'm in love with you. Not because you're leaving and I'm panicking, but because you're kind and talented and you make me want to be better. Because you laugh at my terrible jokes and you cry at dog commercials and you see the best in people even when they don't deserve it. Because coming home to you is the best part of my day, and the thought of a life without you makes it hard to breathe. I love you too, Natalie whispered, the words spilling out before she could stop them. I've loved you for so long, Ryan. Even when it hurt. Even when I knew I shouldn't. Ryan cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing away tears she hadn't realized were falling. Can I kiss you? She nodded, and when his lips met hers, it felt like everything clicked into place. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, like they were both afraid of breaking the moment. But then it deepened, 3 years of longing and denial and want pouring into it. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Ryan pressed his forehead to hers. Stay with me, he whispered. Not because of a contract or a month-long trial. Stay because you want to. Because you love me. Because we can build something real. I'm scared, Natalie admitted. I'm scared you'll go back to the way things were. That this is just temporary. I'm scared too. But I'm more scared of losing you. So I'm asking you to take a chance on me. On us. For real this time. Natalie looked into his eyes and saw everything she'd ever wanted reflected back at her. Fear and hope and love and the promise of something more. Okay, she said. Yes. I'll stay. Ryan kissed her again, deeper this time, and Natalie let herself fall. Let herself believe. Let herself hope that maybe, just maybe, people could change. That love could be enough. That second chances were real. They spent that night wrapped in each other's arms, whispered promises and gentle touches, and when Natalie woke up the next morning with Ryan still beside her, she let herself believe in forever. The first real test came 2 weeks after they returned from Harbor Point. Natalie woke up to an empty bed again, but this time it was 7 in the morning and she could hear Ryan's voice downstairs, tense and clipped. She pulled on her robe and went to find him pacing in his office, phone pressed to his ear. I don't care what the Singapore investors want. We're not moving the timeline up. The product isn't ready. He paused, listening, his jaw tight. Then they can take their money elsewhere. I'm not compromising quality for their impatience. Natalie leaned against the doorframe, watching him. This was the Ryan she recognized from before, the CEO who didn't take nonsense from anyone, who made hard calls without flinching. But there was something different too. He looked tired, stressed, human. He caught sight of her and his expression immediately softened. He held up one finger, mouthing 1 minute before turning back to his call. David, I need you to handle this. Push the meeting to next week and make it clear we're not budging on the launch date. I have to go. He ended the call and set the phone down, running a hand through his hair. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to wake you. Big crisis. Singapore investors are getting pushy about our new software launch. They want us to rush it, and I'm refusing. It's going to be a fight. Natalie moved into the room, studying his face. Do you need to go into the office? Probably. But I promised you I'd be home for dinner, and I meant it. Ryan, I understand that your job is demanding. I'm not asking you to choose between work and me every single time something comes up. I know, but I don't want to slip back into old patterns. I don't want you to think I'm using work as an excuse. Then don't. Natalie came closer, placing her hands on his chest. Go handle your crisis. Do what you need to do. But come home to me when you're done. That's all I'm asking. I don't need you to be perfect. I just need you to try. Ryan pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. What did I do to deserve you? You made me terrible pancakes and showed me your grandmother's house. He laughed, the sound rumbling in his chest. That's a pretty low bar. You'd be surprised how many people can't even clear it. Ryan kissed her forehead, then her nose, then finally her lips. I'll be home by 7. I promise. He kept his promise. He walked through the door at 6:45, loosening his tie, looking exhausted but present. They had dinner together, and Ryan told her about the meetings, the negotiations, the frustrations. He didn't shut her out. He let her in. I used to think work was the only thing I was good at, Ryan said as they cleaned up the kitchen together. The only place where I had control. Where things made sense. But being with you like this, coming home to you, it makes me realize what I was missing. I was so busy building an empire that I forgot to build a life. You're building one now, Natalie said softly. We're building one. Together. The word settled warm in Natalie's chest. Together. It was such a simple word, but it meant everything. Over the next few weeks, they fell into a rhythm that actually felt sustainable. Ryan still worked hard, still had long days and difficult calls, but he made time for them. For her. He came home for dinner most nights. He asked about her day. He looked at her sketches and told her they were beautiful even when she insisted they were just practice. He held her hand while they watched movies. He kissed her goodbye in the mornings and hello when he came home. Natalie started volunteering more at the community center, teaching art classes to kids who reminded her of herself. Ryan came to one of the showcases, standing in the back of the room watching her interact with the children, and when she caught his eye, the look of pride and love on his face made her knees weak. You're incredible with them, Ryan said as they walked to the car afterward. They're good kids. They just need someone to believe in them. Like Mrs. Patterson believed in you. Natalie squeezed his hand. Yeah. Like that. That night, Ryan brought up something he'd been thinking about. They were lying in bed, Natalie's head on his chest, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her arm. What would you think about starting a foundation? He asked. What kind of foundation? For arts education in underfunded schools. We could provide supplies, fund after-school programs, hire teachers. Make sure kids who need it have access to art the way you did. Natalie lifted her head to look at him. Are you serious? Completely. You have the vision and the passion. I have the resources and the business experience. We could do something meaningful together. Something that matters beyond quarterly earnings and shareholder value. Ryan, that would be amazing. But it's a huge undertaking. I know. And I don't want to pressure you. I just thought maybe it could be something we build together. Our thing. Natalie felt tears prick her eyes. This man, this complicated, damaged, wonderful man, was offering her not just his love but a shared purpose. A future. I'd love that, she whispered. They spent the next several weeks planning, researching, meeting with people who ran similar programs. Ryan cut back on some of his responsibilities at the company, promoting his second-in-command to handle more of the day-to-day operations. It wasn't abandoning his work, just redistributing it in a way that gave him space for other priorities. Like Natalie. Like their future. Like the life they were building. One Saturday morning, they were sitting at the kitchen table surrounded by papers and laptops, working on the foundation plans, when Natalie's phone rang. She glanced at the screen and her stomach dropped. "It's the lawyer," she said. "The one who drew up our divorce papers." Ryan looked up sharply. "Do you need to answer it?" Natalie stared at the phone, then at Ryan, then back at the phone. She let it go to voicemail. "I don't want a divorce," she said clearly. "I want to stay married. To you. For real." "Natalie. I know we said 1 month, but it's been almost 2 months now, and I don't need more time. I know what I want. I want this. Us. I want to build a foundation and come home to you every night and make terrible pancakes on Sunday mornings. I want everything we've been doing, but without an expiration date hanging over us." Ryan was around the table in seconds, pulling her up and into his arms. "I want that too. God, I want that so much." "Then we're really doing this? We're staying married. We're staying married. No contracts. No conditions. Just you and me and whatever comes next." Natalie kissed him, pouring 3 years of longing and 2 months of healing and a lifetime of hope into it. When they pulled apart, both breathless, Ryan rested his forehead against hers. "I need to tell you something," he said. "What?" "That night when you said you were leaving, when I watched you pack those suitcases, I realized something. I wasn't afraid of losing a wife. I wasn't afraid of what the board would think or how it would look. I was afraid of losing you." Natalie Green, the woman who hums when she cooks and cries at commercials and sees the best in everyone. The woman who made my house feel like a home without me even realizing it. I was afraid of losing the person I love most in the world. You didn't lose me. I almost did. And I will never take that for granted. Every day I get to wake up next to you. Every night I come home to you. Every moment we have together. I know how lucky I am. I know how close I came to destroying the best thing that ever happened to me. "We both made mistakes," Natalie said. "I should have been honest about my feelings sooner instead of suffering in silence." "No. Don't do that. Don't take responsibility for my failures. You were brave enough to fall in love. I was the coward who tried to pretend it wasn't happening. But we're here now. That's what matters." Ryan cupped her face in his hands, looking at her with such intensity it made her breath catch. "Marry me again." "What?" "Not a contract this time. A real wedding. With our friends and family. With vows that we actually mean. With a future we're choosing, not one we're being forced into. Marry me, Natalie. For real this time." Natalie's eyes filled with tears. "We're already married." "Technically. But I want to do it right. I want to stand in front of everyone we know and tell them that you're my choice. My forever. My everything. I want to put a ring on your finger that means something. So marry me again. Please." "Yes," Natalie said, laughing through her tears. "Yes, I'll marry you again. As many times as you want." Ryan kissed her, and it tasted like promises and second chances and the sweetest kind of forever. 6 months later, Natalie stood in front of a mirror in a small room at Harbor Point's only event venue, a restored barn overlooking the water. Her dress was simple, elegant, nothing like the designer gown she'd worn for their first wedding. That one had been chosen by Ryan's stylist, picked for how it would photograph at business events. This one was hers. Soft ivory lace with delicate sleeves, a dress that made her feel beautiful instead of like she was playing a part. "You look stunning," her friend Jessica said, adjusting Natalie's veil. They'd reconnected after years of lost contact, and having her here felt like reclaiming a piece of herself she'd given up. "I feel like I'm dreaming," Natalie admitted. "You're not. This is real. And that man out there is absolutely crazy about you." Natalie smiled, thinking about Ryan. He'd thrown himself into planning this wedding with the same intensity he brought to everything, but this time it was fueled by love instead of obligation. He'd wanted every detail to be perfect, not for appearances but for her. For them. The foundation had officially launched 3 months ago. They'd funded art programs in 12 schools so far, with plans to expand. Natalie spent her days doing work that mattered, and Ryan had found a balance between running his company and actually living his life. They were building something together, not just the foundation but a real partnership. "It's time," Jessica said, squeezing her hand. Natalie took a deep breath and walked toward the door. The ceremony was small, just close friends and family. Ryan's brother stood as his best man. Her former foster sister, the one good connection from her childhood, was her maid of honor. These weren't people invited for business purposes or appearances. These were people who actually cared about them. The barn doors opened, and Natalie saw Ryan waiting for her at the end of the aisle. He wore a navy suit, simple and perfect, and the look on his face when he saw her made her heart stop. He looked at her like she was the only person in the world. Like she hung the moon and stars. Like she was everything. She walked down the aisle alone, no one giving her away because she was choosing this herself. Choosing him. Choosing them. When she reached Ryan, he took her hands in his, and she could feel them shaking slightly. "You're beautiful," he whispered. "You're not so bad yourself." The officiant began, but Natalie barely heard the standard words. She was too focused on Ryan, on the way he was looking at her, on the fact that this was real. Finally, blessedly real. "Ryan has prepared his own vows," the officiant said. Ryan cleared his throat, his grip on her hands tightening. "Natalie, 3 years ago I asked you to marry me for all the wrong reasons. I needed a wife for business purposes, and you needed financial security. It was transactional. Safe. Emotionless. Or at least it was supposed to be." A ripple of surprised laughter went through their small gathering of guests. "But you didn't stay transactional or safe or emotionless," Ryan continued, his voice thick with feeling. "You moved into my house and you made it a home. You learned how I take my coffee and you left me dinner on nights I worked late even though our contract didn't require you to care. You smiled at me like I was worth smiling at. And somewhere along the way, I fell completely, hopelessly, irreversibly in love with you." Natalie's eyes filled with tears. "I was an idiot," Ryan said. "I spent 3 years treating you like an obligation when you were actually the best thing that ever happened to me. I almost lost you because I was too afraid and too stupid to see what was right in front of me. But you gave me a second chance. You let me prove that I could be the man you deserved. And I promise you, Natalie, I will spend every day of the rest of my life being worthy of that gift." He paused, his thumbs brushing over her knuckles. "I promise to come home to you. To choose you over work, over fear, over everything. I promise to see you, really see you, every single day. I promise to support your dreams and build our future together. I promise to love you not because a contract says I should, but because I can't imagine doing anything else. You're my home, Natalie. You're my forever. And I am so grateful that you're giving me the chance to be yours." Natalie was crying openly now, not caring about her makeup or appearances. "I didn't prepare anything that formal," she said, her voice shaking. "But I want to say this. Ryan, when I agreed to marry you 3 years ago, I thought I was entering a business arrangement. I thought I could keep my heart out of it, take the money, and walk away clean. But you can't choose who you fall in love with, and I fell for you so hard and so fast that it terrified me." Ryan's eyes were wet too. "I fell in love with the man behind the CEO," Natalie continued. "The one who was afraid to feel because he'd seen love destroy his parents. The one who worked himself to exhaustion because achievement was safer than vulnerability. The one who noticed everything about me but was too scared to admit it mattered. And when you finally let me in, when you finally let yourself love me back, it was worth every moment of pain. Every lonely night. Every time I wondered if I was enough." She squeezed his hands. "I promise to keep loving you even when you slip back into old habits. I promise to call you on your garbage and push you to be better. I promise to build a life with you that means something beyond money and status. I promise to be your partner, your home, your safe place. And I promise that this time, I'm not going anywhere. You're stuck with me, Ryan Ashford. For real this time." "I can live with that," Ryan said, smiling through his tears. "Then by the power vested in me," the officiant said, clearly moved, "I now pronounce you husband and wife. Again. You may kiss your bride." Ryan pulled Natalie into his arms and kissed her like they had all the time in the world. Like she was precious. Like she was loved. And when they pulled apart to cheers and applause, Natalie knew with absolute certainty that this was her forever. The reception was simple and perfect. They danced under string lights as the sun set over the harbor. They cut a cake that was slightly lopsided because Ryan had insisted on making it himself. They laughed with friends and cried with family and celebrated not just their wedding but their second chance. Late in the evening, Ryan pulled Natalie away from the party, leading her down to the beach. They walked along the water, her hand in his, her shoes dangling from her other hand. "Happy?" Ryan asked. "Incredibly. I have something for you." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. "Ryan, you already gave me a wedding ring. This is different." He opened the box to reveal a simple silver bracelet with a single charm. "A tiny house. It's my grandmother's cottage. I had it made into a charm. I wanted you to have a piece of the place where everything changed for us." Natalie's throat tightened. "It's perfect." Ryan fastened it around her wrist, his fingers gentle. "I love you, Natalie Ashford. I love you too." They stood there on the beach, wrapped in each other's arms, and Natalie thought about how far they'd come. From a cold contract to a real marriage. From strangers living in the same house to partners building a life together. From pretending not to feel anything to loving each other so much it hurt in the best way. "Do you ever regret it?" Ryan asked suddenly. "Agreeing to marry me that first time?" "Never. Because even though it was hard, even though I spent 3 years thinking I wasn't enough, it led me here. To you. To us. To this." She gestured at the beach, the party behind them, their future ahead of them. "I wouldn't change a single moment because they all brought me to this one. Even the bad moments. Especially the bad moments. They made the good ones mean something." Ryan kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. "I wasted so much time. Then let's not waste any more." They walked back to the party hand in hand, and danced until the stars came out. And when the night finally ended, they drove back to the cottage, the place where Ryan had first told her he loved her, the place that would always mean new beginnings. 3 months later, the foundation opened its 20th program. Natalie stood in a school gymnasium watching kids create art, their faces lit with concentration and joy. Ryan came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Look at what we built," he said. "Look at what we're building," Natalie corrected. "This is just the beginning." "Yeah, it is." That night, over dinner at their favorite restaurant, Natalie told Ryan she was pregnant. She watched his face cycle through shock, disbelief, and finally pure joy. He came around the table and pulled her into his arms, holding her like she was made of glass. "We're having a baby," he said, wonder in his voice. "We are. I'm going to be a father. You're going to be a great father." Ryan pulled back to look at her, his hands cradling her face. "I promise our child will never doubt they're loved. They'll never wonder if they matter. They'll never feel like an obligation or an arrangement. They'll know every single day that they're wanted and cherished and the best thing that ever happened to us." "I know," Natalie said, because she did. This man who'd been so afraid to love now loved with his whole heart. He'd changed, really changed, and she'd been there to witness it. A year after their second wedding, Natalie sat in the cottage nursery, rocking their daughter Emma to sleep. They'd named her after Ryan's first wife, the one he'd lost to cancer, because he'd finally made peace with his past. He wasn't trying to replace what he'd lost anymore. He was honoring it while building something new. Ryan appeared in the doorway, watching them with that same look of wonder he'd had since Emma was born 3 months ago. "Is she asleep?" he whispered. "Almost." He came and sat beside them, his hand gentle on Emma's head. "I never thought I could have this. A family. Real happiness. A life that means something. You deserve it. So do you. God, Natalie, you deserve everything. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you know that. You already do. Every single day." They sat there together, the three of them, and Natalie thought about the journey that had brought them here. The contract that had brought them together. The pain that had almost torn them apart. The courage it had taken to stay and fight for something real. She thought about the woman she'd been 3.5 years ago, desperate and alone, agreeing to a loveless marriage for money. She thought about the man Ryan had been, so closed off and afraid that he'd built walls around his heart. And she thought about who they were now. Partners. Parents. People who'd chosen love even when it was hard. What are you thinking about? Ryan asked softly. How grateful I am that I walked into your office that day. I'm grateful you stayed. I almost didn't. I know. That terrifies me sometimes, how close I came to losing you. But you didn't. I'm here. We're here. And we're not going anywhere. Ryan kissed her temple, then leaned down to kiss Emma's forehead. My girls, he said quietly. My whole world. And as Natalie sat there in the cottage that had witnessed their transformation, holding their daughter while the man she loved held them both, she knew with absolute certainty that some stories really do get second chances. That people can change. That love, real love, is worth fighting for. Their contract had brought them together. But love had made them stay. And that, Natalie thought as Emma finally fell asleep, made all the difference. If you enjoyed this story of second chances and real love, drop a comment below and let me know what you thought. Have you ever given someone a second chance? Share your story.